Yellow, in my personal opinion, was the most underwhelming color, I think, in Destroyer Kings, just because the hype was there. Some of the cards had great effects, but overall, as a whole, the decks just didn't hold up, especially against some of the other stuff that not only was already in the current meta, but even some of the stuff that came out of this set alone. Between Gogeta and Skillless and Frieza, like there was just so many better options that came out of Destroyer Kings than what was offered to us in Yellow with Bojack and Gohan. I was especially excited for the fact that we were getting not only more Gohan support, but a new Gohan leader. And not just a Gohan leader, but we got Super Saiyan 2 Gohan leader. And I really had high hopes for this deck. Now, it being yellow gave us the ability to abuse the shit out of Shugesh with this deck. But even that didn't really help as much as we'd kind of hoped. The leader was just kind of eh. You got to discard a yellow card to draw 2 cards when he attacked, so kind of gave you some deck thinning. The Burst 2 allowed you to do some good Overwhelm every turn if you wanted that support. But the leader was kind of underwhelming. You have to switch 2 energy to active mode when you awakened, which was great. But then on the other side, he was just kind of awkward. His activate main allowed you to choose a yellow Saiyan in your drop area, 3 or more, and add it to your hand. And then you negated that skill for the duration of the game. Like, it was the most vanilla kind of leader you could have. I mean, sure, you could add that, but what of it? Like, you couldn't add a super combo back. I mean, you could add, like, the Guardian Angel Goku that was kind of like a super combo, but I don't know. I feel like the leader itself was just really bad for the deck, and if you were going to run this deck, you just were better off using any other leader. The yellow Bully BR would have been a much better leader for this deck than the actual Gohan leader. Now, the deck did have a good bit of support that came out of this set, but it focused mainly around 2 cards. The first card was Display of Power Son Gohan. He was a 3-cost 19k with Barrier, so he had a good chance of keeping him alive. And plus, at the end of the turn, you got to switch him back to active mode. So he was in active mode and he had Barrier. Outside of a few cards that attacked active battle cards and a few cards that got past Barrier, this Gohan really wasn't going anywhere. But you needed to have him alive for when you played Son Goku Guardian Angel. This card had probably the biggest wall of text on any card in the game so far. Just looking at it, you were just like, holy shit, what is all of this? The permanent said that unless the Display of Power Son Gohan was in play in your battle area, you couldn't combo this card. At the end of a battle in which you comboed this card from your hand during your opponent's turn, if your leader was a yellow Saiyan card, see right there, yellow Saiyan, so you could use that yellow Broly BR instead of using the Gohan, which it would have been infinitely better. Play this card in rest mode, and you can't play Son Goku for the duration of the turn. Activate main for 3 energy. You have to choose a Display of Power Son Gohan from your battle area and place it in its owner's drop. Choose up to 1 Finishing Blow Son Gohan from your hand and play it. Then play this card under the card you played with this skill. Finishing Blow Son Gohan was just a phenomenal card on paper. The art on this card is absolutely amazing, especially that SPR. If we could get an SPR that looks like that, but with Gohan in the purple Piccolo attire he wore in the Cell Saga during the Cell games, that would just be top-notch. He's 30,000 Double Strike, which is not bad at all. His sparking ability said when you played him, if your opponent had 4 or more energy, and if there was a Son Goku under this card, choose all of your opponent's energy, switch him to rest mode, and he gains dual attack for the duration of the turn. So you basically lock your opponent out of being able to negate your attacks or, play any heavy combo cards. Of course, if they had the sparking negates, there was nothing you could do to stop that, unless they had too little life to do it. But good ability. 30,000 Double Strike that gets to attack twice, and you get to basically shut your opponent out of being able to counterattack you. If they have nothing they can combo with, you're going to go ahead and wreck them right then and there. The problem is, because you had to combo that Goku during your opponent's turn, you had to have the Gohan already in play, you had to play that. Like, it worked better against a deck that was aggressive. Some of the decks that I played this against were not as aggressive, and therefore I didn't have as good of a time with it. I still think the deck could have some decent potential. One, it just needs a better leader, and 2, I don't know. Do I think losing Shugesh really mattered? Not necessarily, but having Shugesh would have definitely been a good option just because you can Shugesh out that 3-drop Gohan and then combo the Goku. The Goku would come out to play, and you could do all that in just one swift move, whereas now, of course, you have to play the Gohan and then combo. It's really not that big a deal, but it would have been nice to be able to combo the Shugesh to be able to make that kind of play. One good thing to running the Gohan leader, however, was the full power Kamehameha that came in this set. It's an activate battle that if your leader is the Yellow Sun Gohan Childhood, it gets plus 10,000 power for the duration of battle, and if your opponent has 5 or more cards in rest mode, it gets an additional 10,000. So it's a 1-cost super combo for 20,000. Like that's ridiculously amazing, both offensively and defensively. So like again, I feel like this deck has potential. I don't know. I really don't know how to go about it because the Gohan leader is trash. The Gohan leader is just plain awful. So you could run the deck with like the Broly BR or even like the Bardock leader just because he's a Saiyan. If he kills something, he'll get a power boost. But then if you don't play this full power Kamehameha, you're stuck with the crappy leader. So either way, it's not ideal. But I do like the theme of this deck for sure. Since the Gohan leader was, of course, from the Bojack movie, the other leader was going to be Bojack, the pirate captain. I really didn't care for the Bojack movie. There was, like, some decent moments in it, but Bojack and his crew they were really just boring to me. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy them nearly as much as other villains like Cell or the androids, Majin Buu. But this leader caused a decent bit of controversy just because when you awakened with him, you did nothing else. You didn't draw, you didn't untap. However, his abilities were kind of more than made up for it. Once a turn when you played one, you got to draw a card, and he gained 5,000 power for the duration of the turn. So you got to draw without having to actually attack with him. And then when you comboed with one of your cards during your turn, if the combo area had 2 or more Bojack Brigade cards from your battle area, you got to choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode KO, and then if you did, you got to negate that skill for the turn. So you were kind of like swarming your board with little dudes and then comboing them away and KOing your opponent's stuff, and it was just, there was a lot going on. So you really didn't need the added benefit of the Awaken. Now this is still the only card we've seen that did absolutely nothing when it awakened, and I kind of hope that we'll see more cards like that. They'll have a good effect on the leader, but you get nothing from awakening, so it won't kind of wouldn't really pressure you to awaken as early or to let attacks go through so that you can't hit that awaken stage. On that other side, though, this card reminded me a lot of the Tournament of Power Gohan because you could combo your Bojack Brigade cards while they're in rest mode. That is a big deal because that means you can not only attack with all those cards, but then you can just combo them all the way in one ridiculous combo, either with the leader or with a bigger battle card that you just want to push for game with. I don't know, like it's such a, the leader itself is just so good. I didn't particularly care for the archetype itself. I know, like, you can't play the leader without the archetype, but it's just one of those things, like, the deck wasn't fun to play for me, but the leader was definitely fun to take advantage of. Now, unlike the Gohan archetype, that had a lot of indirect support, the Pirate Brigade had a massive amount of support that was specific to this one deck, and there was a lot of it, so we're going to kind of go over it in a very specific order to kind of try and tie it all together, like in the same motion that you would, the same direction you would take that on a turn-by-turn basis. Arrival of the Space Pirates was an activate main that lets you choose a Bojack Brigade with energy cost 2 or less in your deck and play it in rest mode. That gave you a decent number of options of what you could do with the cards to kind of decide how you wanted to take advantage of the situation that you were in. Now, they were smart with this and made it to where your super combo was a 3-cost. The Merciless Strike Zangia, she was a 3-cost super combo. Unlike most, which are usually 2-cost. So you could not play her with that 1-cost ability, which was great because being able to pull that card out would be kind of a pain in the ass. Although, ideally, it would be in rest mode, so you'd have to protect it for a turn to be able to use it anyways. but I don't know. I don't like being able to search out super combos, but in that regard, it's hypocritical to say that it shouldn't be able to do that, because I like that you can do that with Assimilate for Namekians. You can do that with the Pan Goku's lineage. There's quite a few ways to search out super combos in this game, so it's not like it'd be too broken. But being able to put it in rest mode is what really kills it, because you couldn't even use it the same turn you played it. However, there were still quite a few other cards you could take advantage of that with. You had the Space Pirate Boojin, which you could only have one of him in play, and you got to choose a Bojack Brigade in your hand, and you cost 2 or less and play it. So when you played him, you would play the Bojack Brigade in your hand, and when you comboed with this card from battle area, if your leader was Bojack, obviously, you got to choose one of your opponent's battle cards to switch it to rest mode. So there was a lot of switching things to rest mode in this set. Now, with this card, obviously you're not going to be able to combo with it if you played it via the arrival of the Space Pirates. Not that big a deal if you played it early on, of course, but if you were awakened, you could combo with it in rest mode anyways, and you'd still be able to get that ability off. Then you had the Space Pirate Beto, also a 1 cost. You could only have one of him in play. When you played him, if your leader was Bojack, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add a brigade to your hand. Activate main was to place him in his owner's drop area, then choose 5 with the energy cost of 2 or less in your drop area, and shuffle him back into your deck. So this card was especially important if you wanted to play it and actually take it to any events or kind of be competitive with it, because Janemba at this time was still rampant. It's still rampant now, even in set 7, but Janemba was definitely a viable threat, and this allowed you to kind of keep cards in your deck, so it would make it a little harder for them to deck you out, or at least take a few more turns. Otherwise, not a terribly bad card. It did let you search a card to add it to your hand, but the fact that it kind of countered the abilities of the Janemba deck, I would see it as that being the much bigger asset. Then you had Space Pirate Zangia, the 2-cost one, that said when you played it, you could choose up to 1 from your deck with an energy cost of 1 and play it. So you'd play her, you'd play the Beto, or play the Boojin. You could place her in the drop area, choose up to 1 Bojack card in your battle area, and give it critical for the duration of the turn. So there was a lot of stuff to do with her, especially because with her, you would want to play her with the arrival. So you'd play her for 1, then you'd play the 1 drop, then you would just immediately get rid of her for the 3 drop, give him crit. Like, there was just, the deck had combos. All the cards kind of played off of each other. You also had the Space Pirate Goku, however, I don't remember how you say him. It's Goku with an A at the end of it. He was a 2-cost. When you played him, you chose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, and you couldn't switch it. They couldn't switch to rest mode till the end of their next turn. Activate main for 1 energy. You placed him in the drop area. You chose 1 Bojack card with the energy cost of 3 in your hand and played it. So, and again, this being a 2-drop card, you could play it with the arrival for 1, activate main for 1, drop the 3-drop, and be able to just start going crazy with this archetype. It wasn't a bad archetype, but there was just easy ways to get around it. And all the little dudes, would die off very easily if they didn't sacrifice themselves anyways. Now, Space Pirate Bojack, on the other hand, 3 costs, 19,000. If you be KO'd, you could place a Bojack Brigade in your battle area into your drop area. So you kind of did want to keep them on the board, at least 1 or 2, to be able to protect himself. When you played him, you had to choose a card in your hand and put it in the drop area, and then you could choose an arrival of the Space Pirates from your drop area and add it back to your hand, which is then where you would start all the combo shit again. Interesting deck. I really liked how everything played off of each other. It did kind of feel like your opponent's turns took a little long with this deck, and you were kind of waiting to, get your chance to be able to participate, but the deck did exactly as it was supposed to, so you couldn't really be mad at it, and that wasn't even the worst out of any of the cards that were in this archetype. You also had the meme-worthy derp-face Bojack the Plunderer. This card is the one that really just annoyed the shit out of me. He's an EX Evolve for 4. Now, I'm glad he cost 4, whereas a lot of EX Evolves cost, like 1 or 2. But you had to evolve him off a Bojack, energy cost 3. When you played him, if you had 5 or more life, you got to put all of your opponent's cards in rest mode. So you wanted to make sure that you got your opponent down at least to 4 life before they played this card. Now, when they switched one of their cards to rest mode, from rest mode to active mode, if your leader was Bojack, your opponent had to discard a card, or send a card from their hand to their warp for each one of those cards. Now, I personally felt like it was a stupid ability to count it as your opponent switching cards during the standby phase, the untap phase, whatever you want to call it, during that charge phase where everything switched back to active mode, because the player itself isn't doing that, but whatever. Bandai's logic on some of their rulings in this game are just off the wall. But that really made it annoying, because unless you killed this guy, they were going to do it every turn to you. Now, and cards like this are why I always advocate having removal in your deck. Always having some kind, whether it's mass removal, whether it's single target, just anything. That's why in every green deck, I run Father Son Kamehameha. That's why in a lot of decks for the longest, I was running Black Mass Saiyan. Just because if I was like, whoa, I need to get rid of something. Now granted, Black Mass Saiyan couldn't get rid of this Bojack, but you know what could get rid of this Bojack is Father Son Kamehameha. And of course, now we got the blue one. What is it called? Betrayal of the Master or something. Does the same thing, but bounces the card instead. And then, of course, we got that new green card coming out in Draft Box 4. That's kind of like the Father Son Kamehameha, but a little bit better. But anyway, getting this thing off the board was detrimental. If they managed to get it off once, well, you couldn't really help it, unless you managed to kill the Bojack before they evolved it. But just getting rid of this thing was your best bet every time. Now, his activate main lets you choose a Bojack brigade in your battle area and drop it, and he gained dual attack. But he didn't have crit or double strike or anything, so it wasn't terribly a big deal. The thing that made him powerful was definitely his ability. And if you didn't allow them to get it off, or you didn't allow them to keep it around long enough to use it more than once, then that in and of itself was a victory. We also got a couple generic yellow support cards. The first one being Fearless Assault Krillin, who was the same as the one-drop Kaba, Trunks, and Kid Gohan that all gained plus 10k and double strike or crit. This was now a yellow one-drop crit, which fantastic card for sure. And you could run it in anything you were running yellow in, and these cards are just good on their own because 15k, your opponent's comboing a little bit to at least keep that card, or they're just going to let the card fall and not get that extra advantage. Fatherly Love Saves the Day was kind of eh. It was a counterattack for any yellow leader. You negate the attack, and if your opponent had 4 or more cards in rest mode, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards, switch it to rest mode. So, kind of like a 2-for-1 as far as negating attacks. You're going to negate whatever attack's coming through, then you put something in rest mode, which is then basically the same as negating the attack. The only upside, or the only difference being the upside of if they had an auto that triggered when they attacked, that didn't go off because they never got the chance. So, not a terrible card. I just feel like when it comes to yellow, yellow already had like good cards, good generic yellow cards, Crusher Ball being one of them. And then we had like the Time Magic, the Sparking, which was kind of eh, but I don't know. This, like I said, this wasn't a bad card, but it wasn't really a card that you would see a whole lot of people just, forcing it into their deck just for the sake of getting that extra switch to rest mode.